I had been delivering mail in the Willowbrook Estates subdivision for 7 years without incident. 7 peaceful years of organized routes, friendly waves, and the occasional homemade cookie from Miss Henderson on Maple Drive. The neighborhood was picture perfect, with manicured lawns, tasteful landscaping, and homes that looked like they belonged in a catalog. I knew every dog, every retiree who waited by their mailbox, and every house where packages needed to be hidden from porch pirates. It was honestly the best route in the district. That all changed the day Karen Mitchells was elected president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. Karen had moved into the neighborhood about 2 years prior, into one of the larger homes on the cul-de-sac. She was exactly what you would picture when someone says, HOA president, in that particular tone of voice. She was in her early 50s, always impeccably dressed in coordinated athleisure where despite never appearing to exercise, and she had that specific haircut that seemed engineered for demanding to speak to managers. Her SUV was spotless, her lawn was obsessively maintained, and she had opinions about everything and everyone. Within 6 months of moving in, she had joined the HOA board. Within a year, she was running for president. And when old Mr. Patterson retired from the position, Karen seized it with both hands like it was the crown jewels. The first sign of trouble came on a Tuesday morning in June. I was running my normal route, which meant I arrived at Willowbrook Estates around 10:15 a.m., like clockwork. I had just delivered mail to the Hendersons, and was walking toward the next house, when Karen's SUV screeched to a halt beside me. She rolled down her window with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Good morning. I am Karen Mitchells, president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA. I could not help but notice that you are walking across the lawns rather than using the sidewalks. I blinked at her, adjusting my mail bag. I had been cutting across the same lawns for 7 years. They were not even her lawns. Miss Mitchells, I appreciate the introduction, but I have been delivering mail on this route for years. Cutting across the lawn between houses saves time, and she cut me off with a raised hand. Our HOA bylaws are very clear. No unauthorized foot traffic on residential lawns. I am going to need you to use the sidewalks exclusively. Before you continue this incredible story, do me a huge favor and smash that like button. It actually helps more than you might think, and if you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next revenge story. Trust me, they only get better from here. Now, back to Karen and her sudden obsession with where I walked. I tried to explain that postal carriers have certain allowances for efficient delivery, but Karen was not interested in hearing it. She simply smiled, told me she would be watching, and drove away. I thought that would be the end of it. Spoiler alert, it was not the end of it. Over the next few weeks, Karen seemed to make it her personal mission to monitor my every move. She would appear at random times, always with a new complaint. One day, it was that my postal truck was parked too far from the curb. Another day, she claimed I was delivering mail 3 minutes later than usual, and it was disrupting the neighborhood's peace. She even took photographs of me, which was unsettling to say the least. The situation escalated when I received an official complaint filed with my supervisor. Karen had submitted a 3-page typed document detailing every perceived infraction I had committed. She claimed I was trespassing, creating ruts in lawns with my footsteps, which was absurd, and even alleged that I had been loitering suspiciously near mailboxes. My supervisor, Tom, called me into his office with the document in hand and an expression that said he was already tired. Look, I know this is ridiculous, but we have to take HOA complaints seriously. Just try to keep your head down and follow her rules to the letter, okay? Make this go away. I nodded, frustrated but understanding. Tom had always been fair with me, and I knew he was just trying to avoid paperwork. So I followed Karen's rules. I used only the sidewalks, even though it added 15 minutes to my route. I parked my truck exactly parallel to the curb. I made sure to deliver mail at precisely the same time every day. But Karen was not satisfied. If anything, my compliance seemed to embolden her. She started waiting by the mailboxes, timing me with her phone. She would stand there with her arms crossed, tapping her foot if I took more than 10 seconds at any given house. Other residents started apologizing to me, embarrassed by their HOA president's behavior. Miss Henderson even brought me lemonade one particularly hot day and whispered, "We are all so sorry about Karen. She has been like this with everyone." Last month, she fined the Johnsons for having their trash cans visible from the street 15 minutes past collection time. The breaking point came in August. I was delivering a package to the Robinsons, a nice family with 2 kids, who always thanked me profusely for putting their packages behind the porch pillar so they would not get stolen. As I was walking back to my truck, Karen appeared seemingly out of nowhere. "I need to speak with you. Right now." She marched up to me holding her phone, which was playing a video. It was security camera footage of me delivering mail the previous day. "Do you see this? Do you see what you did?" I stared at the screen, confused. I had delivered mail. That was literally my job. "Miss Mitchells, I am not sure what I am supposed to be seeing here." Her face turned red. "You left the Robinsons' mailbox flag up. After you delivered their mail, the flag was still raised. That is a violation of postal protocol, and it creates visual clutter in our neighborhood." I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I needed this job. "Miss Mitchells, if the flag was up, that means the Robinsons had outgoing mail. I collected it and left the flag up temporarily. It is standard procedure." She stepped closer, invading my personal space. "I do not care about your excuses. I am filing another complaint, and this time I am going to demand that the Postal Service assign a different carrier to our neighborhood. One who actually respects community standards." Something in her tone made it clear that this was not going to stop. This was not about mail delivery or flags or sidewalks. This was about control. Karen had found someone she could push around, someone who had to enter her domain every single day, and she was going to squeeze every drop of power out of the situation that she could. That evening, I sat in my apartment and thought about my options. I was not just a mail carrier, though there was nothing wrong with that profession. I had worked for the Postal Service for 15 years because I genuinely loved the job. It was stable, honest work with good benefits and a pension. But what Karen did not know, what nobody in Willowbrook Estates knew, was that I came from a family with significant resources. My grandfather had built a commercial real estate empire, and when he passed, he left substantial trusts for all his grandchildren. I had never touched mine, preferring to live on my own salary to make my own way. I drove a modest car, lived in a modest apartment, and wore my postal uniform with pride. But I had access to lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors who had managed my family's holdings for decades. I had also never mentioned that before becoming a mail carrier, I had earned a law degree. I had passed the bar exam on my first try. I had worked at a corporate law firm for exactly 18 months before realizing that I hated every minute of it. The politics, the backstabbing, the endless hours, it was soul-crushing. So I quit, took the postal exam, and found genuine happiness delivering mail. But I still had my law license, still kept up with continuing education, and still had friends from law school who now worked in various specialties. As I looked at Karen's latest email, which she had copied my supervisor on, detailing her demands that I be removed from her neighborhood, something clicked. I had tried being reasonable. I had tried following her rules. She had declared war on someone she assumed was powerless. That was her first mistake. I started with research. I pulled up the Willowbrook Estates HOA bylaws, all 87 pages of them, and read them cover to cover. Then I read them again, this time with my lawyer brain fully activated, looking for every loophole, every ambiguity, every potential pressure point. What I found was fascinating. The HOA was incredibly strict about resident behavior, but it had some interesting vulnerabilities. Next, I researched Karen herself. Property records, social media, public filings, everything I could access legally. Karen and her husband owned their home with a substantial mortgage. She drove a leased vehicle. Her social media was full of posts about luxury vacations and designer purchases, the kind of lifestyle that looked expensive to maintain. She was living well, but probably right at the edge of her means. Then I made some calls. My first call was to Richard Shen, a law school friend who specialized in real estate law and had built an impressive practice. Rick, I need some creative legal advice. How would one go about causing problems for an HOA president who has been abusing their position? We talked for over an hour, and Rick was delighted by the challenge. He loved complex property law puzzles. My second call was to my financial advisor, the same woman who had managed my grandfather's trust. I need to know about available properties in a specific subdivision, and I need to move quickly if something suitable becomes available. She assured me that she would have her team start monitoring immediately. My third call was to an old family friend who worked in the county planning department. Just a friendly conversation about local zoning laws and how they applied to HOA communities. Within 2 weeks, I had a complete strategy. It was elegant, entirely legal, and would use every single one of Karen's complaints against her. The key was patience and perfect timing. I continued my route, enduring Karen's harassment with a smile. I documented everything. Every complaint, every time she harassed me, every resident who apologized for her behavior. I was building a file, but more importantly, I was waiting for the right opportunity. That opportunity came in September, when I got a call from my financial advisor. There is a property coming available in Willowbrook Estates. It is not officially on the market yet, but the owners are divorcing and need to sell quickly. They are motivated. I asked her which property. When she told me, I actually laughed out loud. It was perfect. It was more than perfect. It was poetic. The property was the empty lot directly behind Karen's house. Willowbrook Estates had been developed in phases, and this particular lot had remained undeveloped due to some complicated easement issues that had recently been resolved. It was zoned residential, part of the HOA, and sat directly adjacent to Karen's backyard. The divorcing owners had purchased it years ago, intending to build, but never got around to it. Now they just wanted it gone. I made an offer that same day. All cash, significantly above asking price, with a 2-week closing. They accepted immediately. By early October, I owned the lot behind Karen's house. She had no idea. The property records would not be updated publicly for several weeks, and I had structured the purchase through an LLC that did not bear my name. Phase 2 began the moment the deed was recorded. I submitted an application to the Willowbrook Estates HOA Architectural Review Committee to build a new home on my property. This was where my research into the bylaws paid off. The HOA rules were extremely specific about what could be built, down to the exact shades of approved exterior paint colors. But they were written with the assumption that people would want their homes to fit the aesthetic of the neighborhood. Nobody had considered what would happen if someone wanted to build something that technically met every requirement, but was deliberately designed to be problematic. My architectural plans, drawn up by a firm that specialized in maximizing property usage within legal constraints, were masterpieces of malicious compliance. The house I designed was a 2-story structure that met every single requirement in the HOA bylaws. Every measurement, every setback, every material specification was perfectly compliant. But the house was positioned on the lot in such a way that it would completely block the afternoon sun that Karen's backyard currently enjoyed. Her solar panels, which she had loudly bragged about on social media as part of her eco-friendly image, would become almost entirely useless. The second-story windows, all appropriately curtained per HOA rules, would have a direct view into her backyard, eliminating her privacy. The approved white exterior would reflect light directly into her back windows during morning hours. And the roof design, while compliant, would redirect rainwater drainage in a way that would technically meet code, but would make her backyard significantly damper. But the real genius was in the details. I had added base specifically on Karen's own complaints about me. Remember how she had obsessed over mailbox flags and visual clutter? My house design included the maximum number of exterior lighting fixtures allowed under the bylaws, all motion activated, all pointed in directions that would trigger from her backyard movement. She had complained about noise and disruption? My plans included a backup generator, fully compliant with noise ordinances, that would run its required weekly tests on Saturday mornings. She had filed complaints about my truck parking? My driveway was designed to require delivery vehicles to briefly block the street when making deliveries, which was entirely legal, but would happen daily during construction and regularly afterward. I submitted my plans on a Monday. By Thursday, I got a call from the Architectural Review Committee. They sounded confused. "Mr. Patterson, we have reviewed your plans and they appear to meet all the requirements, but we wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss the project. This is just unusual." I politely agreed to attend the next HOA board meeting. That meeting was something I will never forget. I arrived in my postal uniform, having come directly from my route. The board members were seated at a table in the community center, with Karen at the center, looking imperious. She did not recognize me at first in the context of the meeting rather than her mailbox. Then her eyes widened. "You? What are you doing here? This meeting is for homeowners and prospective builders only." I smiled politely and took a seat. "I am here about my building application for Lot 73. I believe it is on your agenda." The color drained from her face. "Your application? You do not own property here. You are just the mailman." I pulled out a folder containing the deed, the survey, and my architectural plans. "Actually, I own the lot directly behind your property, Miss Mitchell's. I purchased it last month. And I am here to answer any questions about my building plans." The room went completely silent. Another board member, a man named George, cleared his throat and picked up my plans. "Well, let me see here. Everything appears to be in order. The setbacks are correct. The materials are all on the approved list. The height is within limits." Karen snatched the plans from his hands. She stared at them, her face going from pale to red as she realized exactly where the house would sit and what it would do. "This is unacceptable. This house will completely ruin my backyard. It will block my solar panels. This cannot be allowed." I kept my voice calm and professional. "Miss Mitchell's, I have designed the house to be in full compliance with all HOA regulations. As you can see from the survey, all setbacks meet the minimum requirements. The height is below the maximum allowed. Every material and color is on the approved list." She slammed the plans on the table. "I do not care about compliance. This is clearly designed to be a nuisance. I am voting to reject this application." George looked uncomfortable. "Karen, if the application meets all the requirements, we do not have grounds to reject it. That could open the HOA to a lawsuit." This was the moment I had been waiting for. I leaned back in my chair. Miss Mitchell's raises an interesting point about nuisances. Perhaps we should discuss what constitutes appropriate behavior in this community. For instance, I have documentation here of multiple instances where Miss Mitchell's has harassed a postal employee, myself specifically, including filing false complaints about federal mail delivery. I have statements from multiple residents about her pattern of abuse of her HOA authority. I pulled out another folder, much thicker than the first. I also have a letter here from my attorney outlining the legal issues with an HOA president using her position to settle personal vendettas. It makes for interesting reading. Karen's face turned purple. How dare you? I was simply enforcing community standards. You were the one breaking rules. I smiled. Actually, Miss Mitchells, I was not breaking any rules. I have statements from my supervisor confirming that all my actions were within Postal Service guidelines. But you have been using your position as HOA president to wage a personal harassment campaign. That is a violation of your fiduciary duty to the association. It is also potentially actionable under several state laws regarding abuse of authority. The other board members were staring at Karen now, and I could see the doubt on their faces. George spoke up quietly. Karen, is this true? Have you been filing complaints against him personally? She sputtered, trying to regain control. He was violating our standards. Someone had to take action. I stood up, gathering my folders. The Architectural Review Committee has 30 days to respond to my application. Given that it meets all requirements, I expect approval. If it is denied, my attorney is prepared to file suit against the HOA for arbitrary and capricious enforcement of the bylaws, with Miss Mitchell's name personally for abuse of authority. I will also be filing a formal complaint with the Postal Service about her harassment, and I have been advised that it may rise to the level of federal charges for interfering with mail delivery. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Miss Mitchell's? I will still be delivering your mail every day. I expect you to treat me with the same professionalism that I have shown you. If you continue your harassment, every incident will be documented and added to the file. The next 3 weeks were glorious. Karen tried everything to stop the project. She called emergency board meetings. She tried to rally other homeowners to change the bylaws retroactively, which required a supermajority she could not get. She even hired her own lawyer, who apparently told her she had no legal grounds to block my project and furthermore, that she had exposed herself to significant personal liability with her harassment campaign. Other residents, emboldened by my stand, started coming forward with their own complaints about Karen's abuse of power. Apparently, I was not the only person she had been harassing. There were stories about fines for minuscule violations, complaints about home decorations that were perfectly acceptable, and a general atmosphere of fear that she had cultivated. On day 28, the Architectural Review Committee approved my plans unanimously. Karen had abstained from the vote on advice of her attorney. I immediately hired a construction company and broke ground the following week. The construction was loud, messy, and disruptive, but completely legal and properly permitted. I made sure all work was done between the hours allowed by local noise ordinances. I made sure all trucks were parked legally. I made sure every single permit was properly displayed. There was nothing Karen could complain about without looking petty and foolish, but that did not stop her from trying. She called code enforcement so many times that they eventually told her to stop wasting their resources. As my house took shape, I added a few special touches that were not in the original plans, but were all completely acceptable. A privacy fence along my property line, built to the maximum allowed height. Exterior lighting that was motion activated and pointed at angles that would illuminate anyone in her backyard. A beautiful patio area on my second-floor balcony, from which I would have a lovely view of the neighborhood and she would have the feeling of being watched. Landscaping that included fast-growing evergreen trees positioned to further block her sunlight. Every addition was HOA compliant. Every addition made her situation worse. By December, my house was substantially complete. Karen's solar panels were producing a fraction of their previous output. Her backyard, once her pride and joy where she had hosted HOA meetings and garden parties, was now a shadowy, damp space overlooked by my windows. Her property value had certainly taken a hit, while mine had the potential to be quite profitable given the Schadenfreude factor alone. But I was not done yet. The final touch came from Phase 3 of my plan, which I had been preparing simultaneously with the construction. During my research, I had discovered that the Willowbrook Estates HOA was actually in violation of several state regulations regarding nonprofit associations. Their financial disclosures were incomplete, their meeting minutes were not properly maintained, and their election procedures did not meet legal requirements. I had compiled all of this information and submitted it to the State Attorney General's office along with documentation of Karen's abuse of authority. In January, the HOA received a letter informing them that they were under investigation and that all actions taken by the board in the past year were subject to review. Karen was specifically named in the investigation as the focus of the inquiry into abuse of authority. The final board meeting I attended was in February. The association had hired an outside management company to oversee operations pending the investigation. Karen was still technically president, but her authority had been completely neutered. She sat at the table looking diminished, her usual aggressive confidence replaced with barely contained fury. The meeting was called to discuss multiple complaints that had been filed against her, including mine. When it was my turn to speak, I stood and addressed the room. I want to make something clear to everyone here. I did not start this conflict. I was simply trying to do my job. But when Miss Mitchells decided to abuse her authority to wage a personal vendetta against me, she made a critical miscalculation. She assumed that because I am a mail carrier, I was powerless. She was wrong. I looked directly at Karen. You complained about me walking on lawns, so I now own a lawn directly behind your house. You complained about parking and delivery times, so now you will watch construction and delivery vehicles at my property indefinitely, as I plan to do extensive landscaping and improvements. You complained about visual clutter, so now you have motion sensor lights that activate every time you step into your backyard. You wanted control over your environment, so I built something you cannot control that completely changes your environment. Every complaint you filed, every petty rule you tried to enforce, I have turned around and used the system you claim to care about so much to make your life significantly worse. And all of it, every single bit of it, is completely legal and HOA compliant. The room was dead silent. Karen was staring at me with an expression of absolute shock, her mouth slightly open, as the full scope of what I had done crystallized in her mind. She had picked a fight with someone she thought was beneath her, someone she could bully with impunity. Instead, she had found someone with the resources, knowledge, and patience to systematically dismantle her little kingdom using her own rules against her. I could see the exact moment she realized that this was permanent, that there was no way to undo what I had done, that she would wake up every single day for the rest of the time she lived in that house, and see the physical monument to her miscalculation looming behind her backyard. The look on her face was worth every penny, every hour of planning, every moment of enduring her harassment. If you made it this far, you definitely need to hit that like button and subscribe to Karen E. World. We have got tons more stories of entitled people getting exactly what they deserve, and trust me, you do not want to miss them. Drop a comment and let me know what you would have done in this situation. Would you have built the house? Or would you have gone even further? Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.